You are live. You are live. I wish they would tell me when I was live, or at least show me in some kind of visual concept, like a meter for my sound, because I don't know if the sound's good or not. I don't know what's going on with it. And they don't tell you. That's the only thing. I don't know if I'm recording from this one or that one, or if it's picking up from a computer mic. But that's okay. Today we're going to talk. It's kind of a follow up on my last episode. We talked about feminist epistemology, and today we're going to talk about the general sense of misogyny. If anybody ever shows up here, let me say hello to everybody. Welcome to the live chat. I know it's kind of late, and no one's up on a Tuesday night, except for MGTOW Warrior. He's always up. Real MGTOWs never sleep. How's my sound, MGTOW Warrior? Yeah. Remember when Stardust used to do his videos on a late night, and like no MGTOW ever slept? It was really funny. Sound is good. You think it's coming from my? Can you hear that tapping? I don't know. They don't give me no indication of what's going on anymore, and that really sucks. And today we're going to talk about misogyny. We're going to talk about misogyny. Oh, great! You can hear it from that. That means it's going through the Yeti, not the camera. Misogyny in the sense of science. And last time we talked about female epistemology and talking how females want to enter science and how they are entering science. And but it must be all so confusing, because there's a lot of things that people do in the sciences. A lot of the language is different, and it's exact language in the sciences. And when we start talking about misogyny, scientists generally tend to do the same thing they do with everything. They'll critique the idea of misogyny. So we talked about Godfrey, how females wanted to enter, and they said somehow there's this idea that they were forced out of science through the ages, up through Copernicus and all the philosophy that went on between Plato and St. Thomas of Aquinas up to Hobbes and all that. They were kept out of that, and we all know that's not true. If you want to be in something, you got to interject yourself into it, write a book, and be a part of that. So, what females or feminists in the late 60s and early 70s said about misogyny, and there was some sort of brand, a special brand of misogyny in the sciences and in basically mathematics and tech that was coming up. There's a lot of tech in mathematics, and I don't think gender matters any if you're doing like coding or stuff like that. I think that argument's I think that's a lame argument. But what a lot of the second wave feminists thought is it was just misogyny. Men were keeping them out, and I think that's the most ridiculous argument that there is. And there's an epistemology about. There's some knowledge about how we do these things, how we figure out what this leads to is us having an argument about misogyny. That's what scientists do. We're going to argue these things. We're going to look at these things, and we're going to say, hey, okay, if you're right about this, then I'll say you're right. And we'll leave it at that. And if you can prove it, if you can give a hypothesis on how you're right, we'll leave it at that. But something happens in these things, and I wrote a little thing about it. Misogyny is an idea, like any social science. It's a social science idea that says men have an unfair bias against women, or an unfair hatred of women, and that's why we don't let them into sciences. And when somebody calls somebody a misogynist, when we look at where it is used, what it is used for, and pretty much it's a pejorative. The people use it, you're a misogynist. That's what they say. You're a misogynist. And I see that on the liberal the liberal left talk shows, and then I hear it on the far right talk shows. They'll try to defend against misogyny and everything. But what we're talking about when we talk about the science of philosophy, and in philosophy, we ask the question of what this is, what this thing is. And misogyny would fall under the metaphysical sciences, and it would fall under the trade of intuitions. An intuition is something that you can't really place in a scientific fact. It's commonsensical, and I will read a quote from you. They're simple opinions, is what they are. Misogyny is a basis of opinion. It's a pejorative opinion where theory, like a theory or like an idea, it's an opinion. You have your opinion on how these things happen, and sometimes they're commonsensical. Sometimes they have sophisticated arguments on misogyny. Sometimes there's some general arguments. Like I said, just calling someone a misogynist is a general argument to what I would say is to gain leverage in the argument. You call them a name to gain leverage in an argument. But and some are more firmly held. But what David Lewis says in 1980 things, but the truth of the matter is they are all an opinion. So they fall under the logo of metaphysics. It's like we do P to Q arguments in science. If you get P equals Q, it runs to a true. It runs to a true, and these things work out, but when we look at the argument of misogyny, it runs to P to A and it runs to P to S. That means it's a belief or it's something that's a feeling or metaphysical. A P to S is a logical structure, but it's just a structure. It's a concept. It's just a concept. And a P to A would be a P to A would be a firmly held belief, is a P to A structure, and a P to so what happens is it's not proven. You can't prove it, and it's not proper reasoning. When we talk about proper reasoning, it's something like when you read Hobbes or I think, therefore I am. Let's do Kierkegaard, not Kierkegaard. Whatever his name is. I think that so I am. I think that's for so I am is proper reasoning, because he goes through the whole argument. He writes a book about it. Descartes. I'm sorry, I had a senior moment there, and it shows us things about skepticism. It shows us things about a lot of different things. I think, therefore I am shows us about life, and then it shows us a lot of different ways to think. There's a whole, you can say that, but there's a whole different there's a whole beginning of an ideology behind that term. If you ever read Descartes, it's proper reasoning. It's accepted in proper reasoning. Nietzsche does proper reasoning. That's what made him great. Hobbes does proper. Leviathan is proper reading, proper reasoning, and then they become installed into what we call modernism. All these guys were a modern philosophy, and these things are proper reasoning. They're facts, is what we're pretty much saying. When feminism enters the social sciences, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about when feminism enters the social sciences. They want to sling words around like that. And misogyny, the scientists within the realm of the framework that they're working on, is they're saying there's this hidden underneath bias of misogyny that we have to accept and let them in the door, regardless of their, not regardless of their education. Pretty much you have to have your qualifications and everything like that, but regardless of their thought processes. And misogyny just happens to be one of those things that I always thought was ridiculous. And in philosophy, in the science of philosophy, because what we're looking for is we're looking for facts. We're looking for the truth. So if someone says you're being a misogynist and that's why you're not letting me through the door, I'm thinking, well, that's an opinion matter. That's something that falls under the branch of intuitiveness. Now, like I explained last time, intuitive thinking doesn't do a lot of intuitive thinking doesn't do a lot for science, because when you start thinking intuitively, it is either a firmly held belief in a section of metaphysics, like religion. Religion is a firmly held belief which they will stand by. It's not a scientific belief. It's not a proven belief. It falls under the category of history, which is the history of science or historians, but it's just a firmly held belief. So metaphysics, and we've seen Charles and James, some of them were arguing for religion at that time, and some of them were arguing, Nietzsche was arguing against religion, atheism, you can't bring, there are some things that may kind of cross over some way down this line, but religion is just a metaphysical science, and it's something someone believes. And misogyny is the same way. It has nothing to do with facts of the universe. It has nothing to do with facts about human nature, biology, psychology, mathematics, or any of the other sciences, even social sciences. But so far in social sciences and gender dynamics, which me and you and all you guys are in, and that's why we have to learn the language. That's why we have to take a philosophy, because we're in the science of gender dynamics. And the science of gender dynamics is what we're arguing about from the time feminism entered the social sciences to the time of now. And we're looking at these things and we're trying to determine whether they're right or not. And misogyny is one of those big ones. Now, there's a difference between misogyny and sexism. Sexism is a very legal term, and it's very well thought out. And I explained it last time. I think I explained it in my YouTube argument about them not monetizing my videos because it says MGTOW in there. When I take MGTOW out of there and I don't use MGTOW, I will get monetized. When I put MGTOW in there, I don't get monetized. I get monetized, like my bike video where I'm riding on my bike. I get monetized. I'll get a small thing. That's sexism. Why is it sexism? Because there's certain categories under sexism that you fill legally. First of all, you have to be a group or an organization. And MGTOW is a group and an organization by the title, men going their own way. Second of all, it has to do with a gender. Men is a gender. Going there indicates your organization. We fall under two of the three, group and organization, and we fall under gender. So taking our and the third thing is it a workplace? If you're monetized, you're working for YouTube, they take most of the money, you get a little bit of money, you're actually a worker. You're actually working for YouTube, and they don't want to admit this, that they have to fall under all the workplace rules that there are, and sexism is one of the workplace rules. Now, today I looked at Mrs. Wyszynski, and she was talking about, again, today they released a bunch of things about how she wants to respect the community, but it seemed to be contrarianism to me, because of what I just explained. MGTOW doesn't get monetized. As soon as you put the MGTOW up there, your monetization ends. It became clear to me over the last few years, if I did use the MGTOW, I was immediately removed. If I didn't use MGTOW and I used a subject, like I would say scientific, however I would, and I put in a catchphrase from gender dynamics, and they would monetize it. So I know that as soon as the algorithm sees MGTOW, it demonetizes you. But they never stop to think about what they were saying when they did that. So when I looked at Susan Wojcicki today, she seemed contrary. She was in the community guidelines. You can't enforce community guidelines if you're breaking the community guidelines. And YouTube breaks their community guidelines because they make a gender distinction in men going there. Men as a group, MGTOW is a group, and we could actually sue them. That's what I thought. Is like that we hit every one of those marks, and even someone. I'll talk to someone soon, as soon as they return my email about from to the APA, not the APA, the whatever they call themselves, the AL something, and they'll give me a definition whether we fall under and whether the workplace. But the argument would be to that this isn't a workplace. No, this is a workplace. If you're getting paid and you're not making minimum wage, you should be making minimum wage, and otherwise they have to do away with this or specify that this is a hobby, and then on a hobby or if they're making money, they have to follow certain rules and everything, and I got to follow certain rules and everything. But there's a different set of rules for that, and we can clarify these things, but they don't seem to want to clarify them. But in social sciences, these words break down to meanings, and words have meanings, and I don't think they're using their words very properly. Why is that going like that? Seems to be a fog in here. It was quite humid today. It was raining all day. We're going to have another set of lovely days coming up here. I looked at I can't wait. I got my bike all charged up for tomorrow. I got to go to the grocery store, and then I got to go. I want to go up to the convenience store and then F with the kids up there, and because they all hang around in front of the convenience store, and I call them names and shit like a grumpy old man. And so I wanted to go up to the grocery store, and I want to ride around the park a little bit and do some because it's going to be we're going to have a long string of 74 to 78 degree days that are sunny, and I want to take advantage of every one of those things because it's going to end here soon, and I know it because I'm old enough to have that distinct knowledge of how the seasons work. I want to say hello to everybody that showed up today. I'm just blabbering on about misogyny, and is it a scientific truth? If we're going to argue this thing in science, shouldn't it be a scientific truth? And I say, no, it's not a scientific truth. And did we argue that out? Yes, there's been a book written about it. It says opinion, and then you'll see it on my if you go to my page where I announce what I'm going to talk about that day, the community page, you'll see the book or at least the thing about it, and they talk about how misogyny is not a scientific. You can't use the word misogyny. It can't be used legally because it's an intuitive thing. When someone calls it, it's an observation of you may like them, you may not like a person, and if I would say, well, she's being misandric. And we pull the opposite, we do the twist on this, that would be my opinion whether she's being misandric. What is it that she's being misandric about? If somebody called me a misogynist, what is it that I'm being and in the belief of misogyny, that can go from one realm to the other. Sometimes I'm walking in the convenience store. I go through the door and I don't hold the door for a girl. She goes, "Oh, damn, you're such a misogynist." And I go, yeah, I am, sure. And sure, that's your opinion because I didn't hold the door for you. Now, other times with feminism, I go in and if I do hold the door and say, hey, they'll go, "Oh, you're just Googling me and you're holding the door for me. That's so misogynistic." So it's damned if I do and it's damned if I don't. In that analogy, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. You're better off just kind of walking up and letting them go in first, or just kind of hang out and smoke your cigarette till you see a break, because you don't want to deal with that stuff, because no matter what you do, you're going to be wrong. You're always going to be wrong. And that's what I was talking about with intuitiveness with females. And my last video was about epistemology. No matter what the dude does, females tend to be so critical about everything, super obnoxious critical, that you're going to be wrong no matter. It's a catch-22 on every subject. Now, I learned this a long time ago. Never argue with a female, because what she really wants to be is right. And I know that sounds goofy, but even if she's wrong, even if she has no idea what she's talking about, being the right and having you say she's right is more important than anything else in the world, even if she's wrong. I got an update. Geez, I wish I would have brought that a little thing. And I hate when they do that. Jesus Christ. I don't know where I put my keyboard at. I got a little keyboard for that back there, and I should bring it up here with me. But I didn't. So when we talk about misogyny, we're really talking about an opinion-based thing that doesn't run to a Q to a P syllable preposition. It runs to Q to A and Q to S. And if you look up Q to A and Q to S, it runs two different things. One means it's a belief, or one means that it's just an idea. And then basically, misogyny is just an opinionated idea of intuition, whether you believe that person is being, and like the door analogy, you can never win that thing. And one woman may think, and that's when I talk about incommensurability. Sometimes I say commensability, but what I really mean is incommensurability. You can have two people that look at the same idea, like we see in politics. We have the far left and the far right, and I always say stay in the middle on these things. You have two people looking at the same idea, and they're looking at the same words, they're looking at the same videos, they're looking at the same everything, and they have two different opposite opinions of what's going on. And that's incommensurability. There's no way these two people are ever going to see the same thing. We have that in sciences too. In science, you have 5-6 guys standing around in a room trying to figure out how to make the thing work, trying to figure out, and one guy's looking at the idea and another person's looking at the idea, and they're looking at two different ideas because of their experience and their knowledge in life, what experiences they have. Everybody's a blank slate and everybody grows up differently. What their religious beliefs are, a whole bunch of things go into that. How you're going to think about something is how you were raised, what morals you have, how if were you raised in a strictly scientific house, or were you raised in a house that was filled with religion, or were you raised metaphysically, or were you raised to be a hippie like me? I was raised by hippies. So how you think about things, which wasn't a really bad thing. It was, it's just a thing that you're going to have to get used to in life. And I say we're taught at a young age, and from kindergarten, we have this thing we do in kindergarten. All kindergarten teachers do it, and they do it for a reason. They come out in the morning, they go, what do you guys want? I want to see a raise of hands. Do you guys want juice, or do you guys want milk, or you want, and we only get chocolate milk once a week. So you got juice or milk, and all the kids will raise their hands. Juice, we got 6 kids. Milk, we got 7 kids. Milk wins. And then the 6 kids will learn how, when you vote for something, that sometimes you're going to vote for something in life and you're not going to win. The next time, and the teacher will explain, the next time, maybe you will win. Maybe everybody will vote for juice tomorrow. And it's the same thing in politics. It's the same thing in science. It's the same thing everywhere. You learn how to accept the facts that, well, sometimes your team, whatever team you're on, is going to lose. And that's America. That's about being democratic. It's about being a good person. It's about learning team sports and learning how to be a good loser and a good winner. Good winners always shake the other guy's hands, like, good game. You guys gave us a hell of a game. It's how people do things in life, and it's how we're supposed to do things. But we have feminism that enters the sciences, and that's where I was going with it. there's ways we do things, and we have votes on things. And when those things don't go as planned, you can't be like a little kid that didn't get his juice bottle. And I see this in politics, and it drives me nuts. It drives friends apart, and it makes people yell at each other about stupid things. And sometimes people are pretty stupid too. Sometimes people are real stupid, and you got to just let them know, hey, that's just yeah, sometimes people are pretty stupid, but we learn. We learn as we get older, and as we get old, we learn how to be diplomatic in life. Sometimes you learn them skills earlier in life. Sometimes it takes immature little children a lot of arguments to figure out how to lose good. And I mean, hey, first couple times you get slammed to the ground as a linebacker, you're like, no, I can't accept that. But there are going to be people bigger and better and smarter than you everywhere you go. My friend, I always tell the story of my friend that I used to drink beers with at the bar. He's since died, but he was a doctor. He was brilliant, and he had a great looking wife. He had a big house. He had 2 really great dogs. Even when I bought a dog, my dog wasn't as good as his dog. He was smarter than me. He was bigger than me. He was fitter than me. His wife was better looking than me. And he had everything. He had a great house and everything. Guess what? He's better than me. And I learned that lesson a long time ago. And I would tell him, dude, you're just better than me. And I don't have no complaint with that. And it's a good lesson to learn. Sometimes you're going to run into people that are better than you in teams and sports. And you're going to run into people that are smarter than you. And you're going to run into people that are better looking than you. And that's something we got to get used to in life. And the incels, as we look at the incels, hey, dude, you're born like you were born. Some of these guys are, hey, call them Chads, call them alphas, call them whatever you want. They're just better than you in that fashion. Be better than them up here. And then that's what they can do, and get used to what you are. But I do believe in some sense that incels are, incel is a disability. You're talking about somebody, we got to ask the question scientifically. Why is it that, I think Stefan, what's his name? Molyneux just did a video, and I've been saying this for years, and finally someone listened to me, I suppose. Incel is a disability. They're disadvantaged males. They fall under every block of disadvantaged. They were born slightly off kilter somewhat, and some may have slight autism, and that's their special brand of not being able to get a woman. What are we talking about? We're talking about what disability makes the female look at them as not. Was it a disability of looks? Are they ugly? And that is a disability. If you were born extremely ugly, because I was, I know because I was born extremely freaking handsome. And you get used to those things. You try to work under the rules of the universe, under whatever rules of the universe you're under, and that's it. That's the way it is going to be. I call them they're just universal facts. If I was born that way, I would use my brains if I was born that way. Some guys are born smart. Some guys got the whole package. Smart. I mean, Camus got the whole freaking package. He was smart. He was good looking. He moved through society effortlessly. He had all the girls that want him. He was in a marriage, and plus he had 3 girlfriends, and his wife never said a thing about it because she was just happy he came back home because he was such a great guy. Hey, wish I was that guy. Maybe when I was younger, I was sort of groovy and real slim, and I had muscles all over me, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to slay this thing. but hey, I got sidetracked by religion. So we all have these things we work under, and people will go. I'll digress back to what I was talking about. I was talking about misogyny in the sciences, and hey, There is no such thing as misogyny in the science. It's just you're having some intuition moment. They say that women can see behind their heads. Everybody used to say that about my mom. Well, you can see behind you. How do you take care of all those kids? She had like 9 kids. So, and she's, I could see there was some intuition. She knew, no, that's not really true. People don't have intuition. They have a general sense of a belief that what's going to happen. Intuition in the S model would be a philosophy would be 3 kids playing by a ditch, and there's a mud puddle and a little hill, and they start punching each other and they say, hey, move away from that, kids. I kind of know what's going to happen there. And then someone says, hey, you don't know what's going to happen. You're absolutely right. I don't know what's going to happen. But my experience is one of those kids are going to get pushed down into that mud puddle. And you can argue all day about that until it happens, which I know it's going to happen. And one of the kids that get pushed, either get pushed into the mud puddle or they won't get. But that's sort of an intuition that's based on life experience. And Wright would talk about, James Wright would talk about life experience and how we do have these, I have a belief that things work this way. Dewey would talk about that. And I have a belief that things work that. But we can argue these things out. You can come to me with a logical position and of reason and say why I'm wrong. And I'll say, that's what philosophers have been doing forever. And there's no such thing as, that kid's going to get pushed into that mud puddle, because there's a possibility, about 50% chance that that's not going to happen. Now, MGTOW does this too. We weigh up the possibility of getting a divorce. We go look at all the numbers. So we have an intuition. What we're saying is we have an intuition about the divorce industry. We can't really prove, and that's why it is, we can't really prove that with 100% that every person that gets married will get a divorce. Now I say that the marriage and divorce is in the same system. So the end of the marriage would be the divorce. So that kind of makes sense. It gives me a P to Q way to look at things. They're both in the same system. We start doing things like that. I say, okay, 86% of the time between 18 and men 20 or 32 years old, 86% of those people will get a divorce. So that's pretty close to 100%. That's like, it's 11% off 100%. I have a really good sense about this. All scientists do this. I was watching a movie yesterday. It was about some lady that goes to, it's a new series on Netflix. I can't remember, something Alone or something. But they were doing this. He says there was a 13% chance we wouldn't be able to fly by the sun, and with the deflectors on, and there was a 13% chance. And she says 13% chance is not good. Even if it's an 87% chance that we're going to get by here, the 13, that's a scientific talk. We're going to try to get that down to somewhere reasonable. And with MGTOW, an 11% chance of making it past the sun, past that big heat ball that's going to burn you up, is not good enough. An 11% chance is not good enough. And so we do this intuitional stuff too, but we do it in a very reasonable, very scientific way. Dewey and James would say, I don't know how far it is to that sun. There's no way to tell how far it is. I can give you a general calculation. I can keep throwing arrows at this and mathematically, and I can tell you, a lot of people will tell you it's right around 37,000 miles away or something like that. And that's good enough because we don't really know, and it doesn't really matter. I told you my idea about the sun wobbles and that stuff, but I can't really prove it. I can only prove it to about 89% chance, and sometimes that's not good enough. If you're flying out there through space at 100,000 million miles an hour, you want to pretty much have that thing a 100% chance. So when we start looking at science, and feminism intuition just doesn't quite cut it. It's not one of the words that we want to use, and we don't want to be throwing around "you're misogynistic" because we already sent it down through the truth table, and it failed to pass the truth table. It failed to pass the truth table. Why did it fail to pass the truth table? It's one of these things where the structure of it is prima. They call it prima facie. prima facie. And prima facie says that it says that it's unproven. I'll accept that there's something there, but it's unproven otherwise till I disprove it. So it comes under the status of prima facie, and it's unproven until I can disprove it. And I think today I pretty much disproved in few books that come out, MGTOW, that's our job. Our job as social scientists, and I say that's why we have to have a philosophy around her. Our jobs as social scientists are to disprove these facts, and that's our job to disprove them. It's not just something we do for shits and giggles. It's our scientific job to disprove it. Or why am I it restarted. See, that's what I hate about Microsoft, Apple, because they will just do this and they'll restart without my permission. And that really pisses me off. And I should have reset that before. Now it's going to come back to my screen and show me stupid, and it's going to want me to log in, and I don't want to log in. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, and I think I'm pretty on the money with what I talk about with these things. And I don't want to keep this going too far, because this is going to lead into another subject that I want to talk about later on this week about how we men do our MGTOW, and what's the scientific way to do MGTOW, and how we think about MGTOW, how we have a actual philosophy of what that philosophy is, and how we're going to work down this way, and what we do. And misogyny doesn't hold water, as far as I'm concerned, and it doesn't hold water in the social science community, and it doesn't hold water with the sociologists. And that's all I wanted to talk about today. The whole idea doesn't hold water. And when someone tells you you're a misogynist, you might as well say, well, you're misandric. And you go, well, no, I'm not. And they'll go, yeah, right. It's just my opinion. And everybody opinions are like buttholes. Everybody got one. And that's my video for today. And I hope you all... misogyny is like a butthole. Everybody's got an opinion. I suppose we could do the P to Q on that if you want, but I don't feel like it. So that's all I wanted to talk about. I wanted to come around and say hello and how you all doing, and test my background, which is failing terribly, and just say hello. And most of all, MGTOWs, thanks for everybody for showing up, and most of all, thanks for being a MGTOW.